Welcome to today's presentation, Managing macOS Sierra and iOS Upgrades. My name is Nick Thompson and I will be your host today. Let's take a look at today's agenda. So our agenda for today is we're going to do a brief overview of the Casper Suite, just so everyone's on the same page in terms of knowledge. Then we're going to dive into the operating systems themselves. We'll take a look at iOS 10 first and see what's new for IT, and then look at the upgrade strategies for iOS 10. Then we'll move on to macOS Sierra and discuss also what's new for IT and the different upgrade strategies there too. The majority of the time will be spent on the macOS Sierra side, since there's so many different paths for IT to take. And then of course we'll wrap up with some Q&A at the end too. So let's get into our first topic here, the Casper Suite. For those of you who don't know us, we are Jamf software, and we help organizations succeed with Apple. We've been doing this for a long time now. We've been doing this since 2002, long before the Mac has been popular in the enterprise. And we manage Macs by using our main product here called the Casper Suite. Now, the Casper Suite is just a set of administrative tools to help you manage your Macs. At the heart of this suite is something called the JSS, or the Jamf Software Server. The suite also includes a set of apps that run natively on the Mac for packaging up packaging up packages, doing remote access to machines, and as well as imaging Macs. It also includes a set of apps for the end user, such as Casper Focus and self-service. We'll talk about self-service a little bit later on too. Now, the JSS is really the heart of this, and it's really just a web server, meaning it can communicate to all your devices over the internet. Now, the JSS can either be hosted on your own, so you could use your own server, whether it's a Mac, Windows, or Linux server, or of course we can host it for you too in the cloud, and a lot more people are choosing to go this route now too, as cloud offering is just much easier to do nowadays. Again, we are supporting Apple, and we've been supporting Apple's operating systems for a while now. If you take a look back at macOS 10 and now macOS and iOS, you see a lot of evolution by Apple here and a lot of innovation along the way too. And since we love to use the newest operating systems here at Jamf, we also want our customers to do so too. And that's why we produce a new version of the Casper Suite to support every major release that Apple's come out with. In fact, we just released our newest version here, Casper Suite 996, on September 7th. A few days before iOS 10 and Sierra came out. So we actually have pre-0-day support this year for the new operating systems. But enough about the past. We want to focus on the new things here, and so we're going to again focus on Sierra and iOS 10. So let's jump into iOS 10 here. What is new for IT? Well, first off, there's a lot that's new for consumers, right? There's a new Photos app which is really great. Maps has a lot of great new tricks. Messages, you can now do apps and these great stickers. News, the new Home app. Siri, of course, works with apps now too. There's a lot of compelling reasons why your users want to upgrade to iOS 10, so it's a good idea to support them with that. Now, what's new in it though for you on the management side of things? There are a couple of new MDM features that everyone should be aware of when talking about iOS 10 here. First off, there's some new restrictions. You can restrict certain things in mail if you don't want to allow this mail drop thing to happen. That's where you send an email and files get pushed through Apple servers. Could be a security risk for some organizations. If you're using the Classroom app in an education setting here, there's some great new features to make sure that you allow screen observation if your teachers like to do that, and to disallow the modification of Bluetooth. This is huge since Classroom talks to the students' iPads all over Bluetooth. You want to make sure Bluetooth is on. And there's a couple other diagnostic settings that you can do too. There's a new payload for network usage. And what this means is you can define the cellular data rules per app. So that means you could enable, say, WebEx or other business critical apps that you want to ensure have cellular data access while disallowing cellular data access on apps that you don't want to have, like say Netflix. Super handy if you have a field of workers that travel a lot and rely on international data. You can set up communication rules for apps now too, and this is brand new in iOS 10 with something that Apple calls Call Kit, meaning apps can leverage the native dialer. So maybe you're using WhatsApp, or if you're using Cisco Spark, and you want to say, I want my LDAP group to always use that default app for calling. You can define those rules now in the iOS 10 MDM framework. There's some great new features from Apple and Cisco here. So if you have a Cisco network, you can take advantage of their fast lane. So you can use these quality of service markings to define high priority apps on your network. That means, again, I could prioritize things like WebEx, like Salesforce, while making sure other apps still get internet access, but making sure the business priority ones get first access to it here. And this all works on Cisco's hardware. There's some new in-house app validation rules, super handy if you're deploying in-house apps and you happen to have devices that are offline for a long period of time. You can actually define the validation of those apps on a longer set here. And beyond the operating system, of course, Apple has these deployment programs. And by deployment programs, we're talking about device enrollment program, volume purchase program, and Apple School Manager. And there's some new things here too that the new operating systems take advantage of. With DEP, you can now skip some of these new screens that are in the setup assistant. VPP, there's not a whole lot that's new this year, but I want to remind everyone of the ability to deploy apps to devices. Super huge feature in iOS 9 that a lot of people were asking for. And Apple School Manager, there's a really cool new way to auto-register your students' Apple IDs if they want to participate in your volume purchase program. So lots of great new stuff on the management side here on iOS 10. So what are some upgrade strategies that you as an IT administrator can take? Well, first off, you should know that there's really no official way to block an iOS update. That means it's not a part of Apple's spec to block it. Now, if you do check out on our community forum, Jamf Nation, you will see some users are experimenting with some network settings to block access to the server altogether, to Apple's update server altogether. But again, it's not officially supported. And if you'd like to let Apple know your feedback, you can, of course, reach out to Apple and send your feedback that way. However, there is an MDM command to install iOS now. And this is great. Your devices just need to be running iOS 9 and they need to be enrolled using Device Enrollment Program. You can then find all of your devices using something like a smart group and send a remote command to that group. You can then choose to download that operating system or download and install it automatically. It's really, really helpful if you want to ensure that your iOS devices are running the newest operating system. So let's see what that looks like here. I'm going to jump into my JSS now. So this is what the management server looks like. And I'm in the mobile devices tab up top, and I've created a smart group along the side here. And a smart group is just a search string that's looking for certain criteria. In this case, I've said look for all the devices that are not the original iPad, not the original mini, iPad 2, iPad 3, because those aren't eligible for iOS 10. And also said make sure everything that we find here is iOS version number less than 10. So when I build out this smart group, it dynamically searches my inventory and it spits back my results here. And these are my results. I see a list of iPads. And I see a bunch of details on that. From here, I can now choose an action. So I'm going to click on this action button in the lower right-hand corner. and I get this screen. What kind of action do I want to send? Well, I want to send a remote command to these iOS devices. And that remote command that I want to send is update iOS version. And I'm reminded here too that this command only works on supervised iOS 9 devices or later that are enrolled with DEP. So this is a really big shout out for DEP here. If you're not using DEP at this point, it's a really good idea to start investigating what it would take your organization to start using device enrollment program. Then, of course, I can choose my action. Do I want to download the update or do I want to download and install it? After I choose my action, then iOS 10 is downloaded to the device and optionally installed if I chose to do that, ensuring that it is running the newest operating system here. So to recap, there's no official way to block iOS updates, but there is an MDM command to update everything for you, but it just requires DEP. So that's iOS, fairly straightforward. There's only really one strategy to move forward here. Now let's talk about macOS Sierra. So what's new in Sierra? There's a lot of great headlining features here. Of course, there's Siri on the Mac. You can do a lot of great new continuity features such as Universal Clipboard. iCloud has some great new things where you can sync your desktop and documents folders. I've got an Apple Watch, so I use my Apple Watch now to unlock my Mac. Very handy feature, saves a lot of time. And there's this new utility that users can use to manage their storage. Should be very helpful for IT admins when users complain about their hard drives filling up here. So there's a lot of compelling reasons why users want to upgrade to Sierra. Of course, there's a lot of new IT features as well too, so let's review those. There are new restrictions, just like iOS had some new restrictions. So you can restrict things like Apple Music now. You can restrict that mail drop, just like on iOS. And you can restrict a lot of those specific iCloud features as well, too. There's some new security settings. You can now define the firewall behavior of the built-in firewall utility that's in system preferences. So you can actually say which apps are supposed to allow connections or not. If you got a little worried about unlocking your Mac with an Apple Watch, well, you can disable that feature if need be, and then you can sort of evaluate the security viability of that. I'll just say Jamf, we let our users do it, and it's a really handy feature, and it's all in the security and privacy payload. There's some new VPN settings if you're utilizing these new protocols. There's a new software update command, which I'll talk about in a second here, and the deployment programs are updated as well too. So you can skip some of those screens. You can do the deploying apps to the devices and Apple School Manager updates too. Circling back here to this new software update command. So this is very similar to what we just did with iOS. Essentially, it's a new MDM command that lets you install any package from Apple's software update server. So any pending update that Apple has. That includes built-in apps like iWork, right? So if you're updating Pages, Numbers, Keynote. Now, third-party App Store apps are handled slightly different. And this does require DEP enrollment, just like DEP enrollment on the iOS side. So again, another reason why to get on the DEP train here. So let's now look at our upgrade strategies for Sierra. And to do that, we're going to do a workflow diagram. And so we start our workflow diagram out at the beginning here. And Apple releases this new macOS. And we need to ask ourselves, do we want to upgrade now? Are all of the apps that we use, are they compatible with Sierra? Is there any sort of security risk that we need to be worried about? Is there anything that would hinder our devices from working if we chose to upgrade now? And if you just decide, boy, we need more time to test this, you can certainly block the update here. Unlike iOS, you can block a Mac update. So you do this right inside of the JSS here. And this is what it looks like. I specifically make a new restricted software record, and I tell it what to block. In this case, I'm blocking the Sierra installer. So that process name is install macOS Sierra.app. I can then even choose to delete that application so it doesn't take up hard drive space. I'll have it email me, and I'll send a little message to the user basically saying, Sierra is not supported yet, contact IT for any assistance. Now, if you want to also add an extra layer on top of this, because sometimes people have, could change the name of the application, well, you can also restrict this process name, install assistant, and that will also accomplish the same thing too, but it will block any OS installer. So that's kind of a nifty process to restrict if you so want to. So let's say now you've done your due diligence and you said, great, we love Sierra, it's a wonderful upgrade, we're ready to go forward, let's move forward. We then have a question that we need to ask ourselves. What do you want to do with the data that's on these devices? Do you want to keep the data intact? And you'll ask yourself common questions like this. Is the data backed up? Is this data somewhere else where it's okay to erase that drive and then move the data back? Are these shared Macs? Are these like a group of Macs that can easily be upgraded and users are sharing them? Or are they individual Macs where you maybe don't want to erase the data on there? How critical is that data? And really just what makes sense for your organization? So after we've evaluated some of these questions internally here, we'll move forward. And in this case, we're going to look at the keeping data workflow first. And we have a few different choices to go through here. This first branch has two sub options after it. And it has us wanting to do something first here called caching the install file on the user's Macs. We want to save our bandwidth, right? We want to make it as easy as possible for users to upgrade. So we're going to pre-cache the Sierra installer on all of our Macs so that then users could install it themselves, or we can push out a second command to upgrade it for them here. So let's see what this looks like. First off, I need to get a copy of Sierra. And where do I get it from? Well, I get it from the Mac App Store. So I get a copy as the IT admin. Special call out here is if you're using Apple server, highly recommend turn on the Apple caching service. It will really save your network a lot of bandwidth, and it's great for any sort of other updates that you do. So I get my copy of Sierra from the App Store, and what do I do with it? Well, I move it into our Casper admin tool here. And what Casper admin does will essentially repackage up Sierra for you in a way that is recognized as an OS installer. And it will upload it to your distribution point, whether you're using cloud distribution point or whether you're using a local distribution point. So it's critical that you take this step here. After that, I'm going to jump back into the JSS and I'm going to do a new policy. Now, a policy is a framework that the Casper Suite utilizes, which is kind of a step beyond MDM. And so we're going to break down what a policy does. And this is our main screen here for the policy of installing Sierra. You'll notice first off, I have a trigger. And the trigger is basically when the policy runs. And so in this case, I chose to check the recurring check-in. That means the Mac, as it's checking into my server every couple of minutes here, will say, do I have a new policy? And I want it to run when it next checks in. Now I could change that as well too, and you can see the different options there. I then get to choose how many times I want this policy to run, or the execution frequency of that. It makes sense for this to just do it once per computer. So after I've defined my trigger and my frequency, I need to tell it what I want it to do. Well, what I want it to do is I want it to install Sierra, or I want it to cache in the Sierra installer. So I choose that package file from my Packages tab here. And then I get a couple of options. And here's where I choose that cache option. Because again, I want to save network bandwidth by caching it first. Then I get to choose who gets the policy. This is known as the scope. And I'm going to scope this out to a smart group again. Just like we used a smart group for iOS, it's a lot easier to scope things to a smart group of devices rather than individually picking them out. So again, I've created a smart group where it looks for criteria that meet my organization's standards for installing Sierra, which basically means any Mac that's not on it. So after I've scoped it out here, then I go back to my workflow and I need to determine how do I want to install the Sierra installer. And I've got two choices to do that. First choice is I can let my users do it by installing it in self-service. I'll talk about what self-service is in a second here. Or I can have it be installed automatically for the user where they don't have to do any interaction whatsoever. So what is this self-service? Well, self-service is part of the Casper Suite, and it is a it's basically like your own personal app store. It allows you as IT to populate this with approved apps, printer settings, anything that you would like your users to have. So in this case, I can easily just put the Sierra installer right here so that when users are ready to install it on their own, I tell them just go to self-service like you do for everything else, click Sierra, and it will trigger that install for you. How do I set that up? Well, I go back into the JSS and I'm building a second policy now. I'm building a second policy to install the cached Sierra installer. So I take the same steps as before, where I choose my trigger, I choose my execution frequency, but this time when I choose my package, I choose the different action. So a second policy. I then move over to my self-service tab, and in that self-service tab, this is what defines how the policy is run. By checking that box, that's what puts it in self-service. If I left it unchecked, it would be the automatic choice. So that's where I get my choice of how I want to install this. In this case, I'm going to put it in self-service, add a little note, description about Sierra, and then let my users get it when they need to. If I were doing it automatically, I'll probably want to take advantage of this last tab here, this user interaction tab, where I give them a little bit of communication. You'll notice I'm telling them what's happening if the users happen to be on their devices at the time. So then, of course, Sierra is downloaded to the Macs, and it is installed based on your settings that you chose before. So those are the first two choices here. We then have two other choices within the keep data branch, if you will. One of them is to just simply allow your users to download it and install it on their own. There's really no management involved there whatsoever. You just let them do it. The other one is this new MDM command, and this is very similar to how iOS works. So let me show you what that looks like here. So I go in again. I go back into the JSS, and I am searching my inventory, or I'm doing a smart group again, and I'm choosing that action button, just like iOS workflow. And that action that I'm choosing is to send a remote command, and that remote command is to update the OS version and any built-in apps. And again, it reminds me, this is only for Macs that are running 10.11 already and are enrolled with DEP, really underscoring the importance here of DEP. And then I choose my action. Do I want to download the update, or do I want to download and install it? Now, optionally, I could just go into a single Mac at a time, and I could do those same commands. We've got buttons for those commands that we saw here earlier. So I could just individually update a Mac at a time if I wanted to do that too. And of course, just like before, Sierra is downloaded to the device, and it's installed based on what we told it to do. So that completes that workflow there. Now, if I'm okay erasing the data, I'm probably looking at imaging my Macs. And imaging, there's a few different ways to do so. You can either do it over the network using NetBoot, or you can use target mode for local imaging here. But before we dive into imaging, I want to just touch on an important topic, and that is kind of what's changing. If we sort of look to the future and read the tea leaves, if you will, we know that Apple's coming out with a new file system soon. They've announced this at WWDC, which means a lot of the traditional imaging workflows that we've been using in the past are going to likely change. We already see it in the setup process right now where people are using DEP more instead of imaging. We'll likely see that too for refreshing machines. We also know that the MDM framework is continuing to evolve, which means you want to start testing that new MDM update command for macOS, because that will more than likely be one of the best ways to update your Mac operating system moving forward. But if you want to go down the path here of imaging, since we are still doing it, this is what it looks like. You essentially go into your settings pane, and this is the new settings pane in Casper Suite 996, where you see everything all at once. And I'm going to click on my configurations button here, and I'm going to choose what packages I want inside of my image. So I'm going to choose the Sierra installer, of course, but I'm also going to add in like Google Chrome, I'll add in Skype, and I'll throw in some printer drivers too. I'll then boot up the Casper imaging tool. We see that here on the left. And I'll start connecting my Macs. I'll choose what sort of mode I want to do for imaging. In this case, we see target mode is selected, where it's going to erase the drive that's connected to it, and it's going to install the configuration that I chose earlier, the Sierra installer. And we can see all the different components of that on the left. There's the Sierra installer, there's Chrome, Skype, and the printer drivers. I can then start plugging in as many Macs as I want and just re-image them one at a time, or do a mass update using NetBoot over the network. So that's it. That's the workflows for macOS. It ranges really from just letting your users just update it on their own to helping them through self-service, installing it automatically for them, either using a policy or this new MDM command, or relying on some of the traditional workflows of imaging, either over the network or locally. So what are some next steps if you'd like to learn more about this? Well, first off, I highly recommend you check out Jamf Nation. Jamf Nation is our free community forum that lets you interact with other IT admins and post and discuss what they're doing for their environment. You can learn a lot right here on Jamf Nation. Again, free community forum. And of course on our website too, jamfsoftware.com, where you can reach out to our sales team and we can help you figure out what works best for your company and really tailor the solution to your needs. And of course we have a lot of great other webinars online too if you want to learn more about encryption or patch management or dive deep into, say, iOS. We have a lot of great webinars online here too. So with that, I want to thank everybody, and that concludes our presentation. Thank you.